Okay, ladies and gentlemen, sorry about the delay there. Had a little bit of an issue getting the window opened here. Not as many issues as Goodyear had at the race today. I'll tell you what, I'm going to post the new link here to make sure everybody's got that. I don't even know if it's the same link that I posted on the Twitter account here. Wait for the post-race live stream. Let's see. And post and so right, are we good? All right, I think we're good. On top of everything else. Hello everyone and welcome back Welcome back to the live stream here after a crazy weekend of racing in Indianapolis. And last place ended up being a rather significant story, especially on Sunday. I will tell you that. Uh-oh, we have an unstable connection. That's not good. Okay, hopefully that's going to improve. We're apparently trying to reconnect. We will find out. Looks like our connection good. I hope the audio is not too bad. Oh, looks like it's back up. Okay. So again, as I was saying, the last place battle there ended up being very significant as Quinn Houff was running in the last spot, coming down pit road under an early competition caution. Everybody lines up single file to come down one of the most treacherous pit roads in NASCAR, one that had a serious accident in this very race last year when Bubba Wallace jammed on the brakes and everybody plowed in the back of him there. This time it was the back of the field around Tyler Reddick and Christopher Bell. And ultimately about anywhere between, I think, about 5 and 9 cars were involved, some of them with serious damage in there. And, of course, first, before we go any further, certainly hoping our best wishes over to the crewman on Ryan Blaney's crew, the right rear tire carrier, who was pinched between Brennan Poole's car and Ryan Blaney's car on pit road. Last report was that he had been checked into a local hospital for further examination, but he certainly was awake and alert, as was shown during the broadcast, given a thumbs up on pit road. And so a crazy situation there with him. First of all, thank you so much, Beast of Metal, for the super chat. Kudos to McDowell for following up his record-breaking last place finish with his second top 10 in 3 races. Absolutely echo that. Front Row Motorsports had a great run in this. John Hunter Nemechek also had a great run as well. Both those cars being a factor, and then the ultimate cautions there that put people that were pitting off sequence back on the same sequence as the leaders, put them back in the show again. So again, McDowell doing a great job this year. Pocono was definitely a standard outlier with what happened last week, but absolutely congratulations to him on a good run, especially in a race that had as many accidents and crazy things happening as what turned out in this one. But again, the pit road incident earlier today, and one thing that was really a big challenge here was talking about what happened during that pit road incident and where it exactly started. It seemed like it did happen when the 8 slowed up in front of the 95 and them running into each other a little bit. Chris Buescher got in the back of the number 95 there a bit harder, which ended up taking him out of the race. And then from there, Ryan Preece had a little bit of a gap. Looked like he either jumped on the brakes or was just full-on drilled by his teammate, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., turned him to the right, and it was a complete pile-up from there. Martin Truex Jr. was serious damage, Corey LaJoie as well. And then Justin Allgaier in his first start coming back into the Cup Series since 2016, relieving Jimmy Johnson. And, of course, our best wishes to Johnson and his family after the COVID diagnosis last week. Allgaier cutting a hard left, trying to find a way between the wreck and Ryan Blaney on pit road. The hole closed up. He runs into Stenhouse, and then Brennan Poole clips the sideswipes Blaney's car, causing the incident mentioned earlier with the pit crew members. And the Jackman jumping onto the roof of the car there, just astounding feat of athleticism and everything else on top of that. But really crazy deal with that. But ended up being the situation where a couple of cars were already out under the damaged vehicle policy just from that incident alone, traveling at freeway speed into a pileup at the beginning of pit road. And then you had a situation there where it seemed like Preece had been pulled out very early on. I didn't hear the radio transmission from NASCAR. I did hear them say something about the DVP, the damaged vehicle policy during that, but the 37 didn't complete another lap. LaJoie was actually credited with one more lap completed, either because he was able to drive to his pit stall or something there. If he was towed to his pit stall past the stripe, that wouldn't have counted as another lap, at least from what I recall from the incidents at Pocono we had it either last year or the year before. But apparently he completed another lap. Allgaier went back out there with damage. He ended up not meeting minimum speed with the splitter dragging. Brennan Poole ended up being parked with the DVP. Same thing with Stenhouse. But last place ultimately didn't change hands after that incident, with Priest taking it from Quinn Houff. And Priest now with unofficially, pending the results of disqualification results, with his second last place finish of the year and first since the midweek race at Darlington earlier this year, the second overall of his Cup Series career. And then you combine that with Saturday's race, where we had a mechanical issue over at Jeffrey Earnhardt's team, the rear track bar coming apart, the track bar mount puncturing the oil tank. 15 car comes in both smoking and with the rear end housing moved out of alignment. Team ultimately couldn't get the car back together, didn't want to risk it from the communications that I heard on the radio. And he ended up being last in the first ever road course race at the Indianapolis road course for NASCAR, at least, not the first ever on that course, of course. So we'll talk about more about these races and everything. And I believe I have the trivia thing here too. So we'll jump into that here in a little bit. But let's take another look here at the results and cover that. I see the comment already about Ross Chastain. And indeed, he had a great run there in the 77, keeping that car on the lead lap and a factor in getting a top 20 finish. So a great run for him, dodging a lot of the wrecks. And as you say there, Stephen C., absolutely the best run that that team has had, Spire Motorsports, since Haley's win this weekend last year when it was still Daytona, and they were dealing with lightning strikes in that one, dealing with lightning weather again. And this one, to a lesser degree, still getting the full distance in just barely before the sunset, which is just about 5 minutes ago from the report that they showed during the broadcast. Let's see, where is the unofficial results? Try to get that pulled up here in the meantime. But other good runs there. Aric Almirola continuing a great stretch of runs that he's had ever since the Talladega race, where he was spinning across the finish line. Should have won the first of the two Pocono doubleheaders. Seemed to have a solid finish in the second one. Was again in the top 5 here. Where was it? And then showing third here, Matt Kenseth. Can't say enough about Matt Kenseth. Seemed like it was going to be his last win at that race at Phoenix. Of course, did that in my video on retirement seasons right before he was announced to be the driver that would take the place of Kyle Larson in the number 42. He ends up taking the second spot here. Looked like he had a chance to end the McDonald's curse that has been going on since 1994. Jimmy Spencer. Interesting note with the McDonald's curse. It basically started at Indianapolis, where Spencer had a very hard hit and had the first last place finish in the history of the Brickyard 400. I believe it was a serious shoulder injury. Pretty much nixed the rest of his season. Wasn't as competitive the rest of the year. And Spencer himself didn't win another race even after he swapped teams and ran for a couple other organizations later in his career, at least for the next decade after that. But it would have been something if Kenseth could have ended that at this same track and ended the McDonald's curse. But apparently that's going to have to wait at least for another week or so, depending on when McDonald's is going to be sponsoring the 42 again. But a fantastic run for him. Yet another runner-up finish for him at the Brickyard 400, but certainly a good performance there. Good turnaround for Cole Custer as well. A lot was talked about during the broadcast about how much Christopher Bell has turned things around this year after having a difficult start to the season, basically getting his doors blown off by Tyler Reddick, who has continued to look good, still getting an 8th place run despite the aforementioned involvement in the pit road incident. But Custer getting a 5th place finish today. Looked like he was going to be about 4th before that, getting shuffled back a little bit after Almirola and Keselowski got around him, but still finishing ahead of big names there, finishing ahead of Kyle Busch and others there. Bubba Wallace getting into the top 10 there, finishing 9th after he finished 3rd in this race last year. Certainly seems like he and the Richard Childress support that Petty Enterprises team, or the Richard Petty Motorsports team has had, is definitely helping them out, and that tide has lifted all boats. Joey Logano having a difficult run even after drawing the pole, still gets 10th place finish after an unfortunate incident at the end, where Matt DiBenedetto had about a top 5 car going most of this race, ends up getting collected in an accident with Austin Dillon. Dillon is another driver who, other than his incident in Martinsville, where he very nearly finished last there, has had a breakout season right along with his new teammate, Tyler Reddick. Childress team, again, kind of hooking on to the Bubba Wallace thing in the 43. Those teams are really getting it together, and it's good to see. And these are, unfortunate things that happen when you're battling for a top 10 spot. Sometimes things come to blows there, and you fall further back in the lineup. But unofficially, it's showing Matt DiBenedetto in 19th, and Austin Dillon, where was he? I think he was he further back? Was he off the lead lap in that? No, 18th and 19th. Okay, But Chastain able to capitalize and get a 17th place finish. Looked like he was going to be just on the edge of the top 20, but again, the great run for Spire Motorsports. John Hunter Nemechek in the 15th spot. Michael McDowell in the 7th spot. His Beast of Metal brought attention to with his as well. Unfortunate deal for Matt DiBenedetto. It looked like they had a great run at Pocono. Could have had some good finishes despite how things shuffled out with the fuel strategy. And this one here looked like they were going to have at least a top 10. I thought certainly a top 5. But unfortunately, it's going to be further back in the lineup with a Rec 21 car. Still say that was a fantastic paint scheme that DiBenedetto had. That dark burgundy there with the white rims looked really nice. Daniel Suarez with the top 20, finishing in the 20th spot there for the Gaunt brothers. Had all kinds of issues earlier there. Apparently, a transponder wasn't working, and then the car was smoking, and had the car to stop on the backstretch. Getting a top 20th place finish there, practically on the lead lap. Just first car one lap down. Great rebound for him. And then you look on just the other side of it. When you had these early accidents on pit road and then these legion of tire failures that I think should be very troubling, you could say that, okay, yeah, I mean, there's issues with lack of practice in qualifying, the fact that the Xfinity Series wasn't running on the full oval, so maybe the track wasn't as rubbered in. You can make a lot of excuses there, but the fact of the matter is you have a series of troubling right front tire failures between Eric Jones and Denny Hamlin and William Byron had one at one point there, and Ryan Blaney was another one. I mean, too many to even remember. It's something that I think people need to really draw more of an attention on. I mean, these are all drivers for different teams. Yeah, the common denominator is the track, but it's unfortunate what was going on with the tires, especially with Pocono just last week. You would think that they would be able to anticipate what tire wear would be like, and a way to actually make the most of that run. Different surfaces and everything too, but still an unfortunate situation that hopefully they get worked out. Definitely thankful for the advancements in the safer barrier and the head and neck restraint device. Obviously, with the anniversary coming up this Tuesday, certainly brings attention to that, and we'll talk more about that as we go along here. But great runs for a lot of these small teams that typically end up competing for like 30th on back and just racing against each other. J.J. Yaley in 21st for the Rick Ware team. B.J. McLeod to 22nd after he started last. This is in the red car that apparently had all those issues, mechanical issues at Atlanta, and again another race. The other race, what was it? I think it was if it was Pocono or if it was Charlotte or one of those races there. Good to see him get a good run in that. Apparently they were having a tight battle for the Lucky Dog at one point, running on trying to get fresh tires there. Him competing against Timmy Hill. And ultimately, Joey Gase for the Lucky Dog spot. Gase ended up getting that early on. Quinn Houff getting 23rd. Great recovery for him after noticing the incident on pit road. He managed to not be involved in that. Him and Josh Bilicki, and I believe another car in front of it. I think it was one of the Ware cars, wasn't sure, but they were the ones at the very tail end of that pack and managed to avoid getting involved in that wreck. And they were certainly able to capitalize on that. Garrett Smithley in 24th for the Ware team. Josh Bilicki 25th. Personally working on the interiors of his ride at Tommy Baldwin's team, as was discussed earlier this week on Twitter. Great run for him. The Insurance King car, Joey Gase getting 26th, and all of them ahead of several drivers with so many problems. William Byron with his tire issue gets 27th, Hamlin 28th. Timmy Hill apparently issues with fuel pressure, it sounded like, from on Twitter. In the 29th spot, Alex Bowman with his hard accident. That was another one we didn't talk about. Chris Boucher with the damage there from his incident. Blaney is shown out with the damaged vehicle policy. He did keep going after his incident. Apparently did not meet minimum speed. He's shown out with the DVP. Eric Jones, Newman out with accidents, even though Newman kept going from his. It's interesting, again, the delineation between drivers that are out from crash damage versus damaged vehicle policy. Certainly seeing that in the lineup here. Poole and Stenhouse were out under the DVP. And the bottom 4 finishers, Allgaier, Truex, LaJoie, and Preece, all cited out with accidents, of course, stemming from the incident on pit road. So a wild race. We haven't even got around to mentioning Kevin Harvick and all the crazy moves that he was making on the apron, much like Ryan Hunter-Reay at the Indy 500 a couple of years ago, just getting almost in the grass. Denny Hamlin doing the same move. It would have been amazing to see what they could have done at the end. I think Hamlin pretty much had Harvick's number at the end, with Harvick having kind of a tight condition. But Hamlin was having to work to maintain that about 5/10 to 6/10 gap that he had for that entire run towards the finish. But unfortunately, he's not going to have the finish to show for it, and still has not won the Brickyard 400, while Harvick has now taken his third. Crazy runs there at the end. I certainly hope all the drivers out there that were involved in the accidents are recovering well. It's good to see that they were all walking away at the very least. Even Hamlin, after what was a savage hit to the turn 1 barrier there while leading with 6 laps to go, just an absolute heartbreaker. But we've seen this so much, not just in the Brickyard 400, but also in in Indy's history itself. How easily these races can be decided on pit road or just by the track itself, just plain old dumb bad luck. And this was very much certainly a case of that. If you think back to the inaugural Brickyard again, mentioning Jimmy Spencer earlier, what ultimately decided that win for Jeff Gordon was a battle very much like this with him and Ernie Irvan. Irvan having pretty much the best season of his career before his serious injury at Michigan just a few weeks later, and him leading that race for so much of it and going up against Jeff Gordon, the young upstart, just having won at the Coca-Cola 600, them going one-on-one, and then Irvan ultimately cutting a right front tire. Fortunately, didn't put him into the outside wall, but was enough that he was able to he slid out of the groove, drop back in the lineup, and then the tire eventually went down on the backstretch. Avoided a serious hit to the wall, but did ultimately cost him a victory in the race, and he ultimately would not win the Brickyard 400, even after another close call racing his teammate Dale Jarrett in 1996. You wonder if Denny Hamlin's going to be in that situation now with all these runs that he's had. But I guess if you look at it positively, maybe he has a chance to win it next year and be able to win it in front of some fans when all this stuff passes here. But a crazy race. Certainly there are things that I think NASCAR needs to pay attention to with the issues with the tires, try to figure out how much of that was the track versus the compound that they had. We'll find out what the situation is there. A little bit of knocking the rust off for the NBC group as well. I think that's to be expected, given that this wasn't really the expected start of their season. Now that we're finally getting into races here that were scheduled at their original weekend after the Pocono doubleheader last week. But a lot of interesting things to take forward on that. Just checking this out here on you guys' comments on there. Yeah, Alex Bowman and Newman had the right front issues, absolutely. But really, really a crazy situation there. So this certainly leads us to definitely got to talk about Saturday and the Xfinity race there on the infield road course. Obviously, the Xfinity Series on the big track has been one of the worst races on the season in these past few years. It has usually been very not competitive, not a lot of dramatic moments in there, and often it has a lot of these Cup Series drivers coming in there where they just are the two giants wrestling while everybody else is just dealing with the scraps out there. Now, certainly turning it around and running on this road course, you got to admit that battle at the end there, those last 4 laps, there's a reason they were replaying it before the race started today during its lightning delay. Fantastic battle between a lot of those drivers, between Austin Cindric and Chase Briscoe and Justin Haley getting into the mix from way back in the 5th spot to join this top 4 group there. Noah Gragson and goodness, I'm forgetting it already. Gregson and Haley and just so many of these young stars that are all competing for these great spots up there. Good to see them put on an absolute show out there. Allmendinger was the other one. Allmendinger right in the middle of the mix there as a guy with all that Cup experience, finding that he is up to his waist in these other road course stars that are just putting on a great show out there. It's unfortunate, the whole situation with the Austin Cindric and deal there with the jumped restart, but it ultimately worked out in the end with the battle there at the end. I will admit that the rule with the restart box, I know there was a tweet I made on that where I said, look, he caught the 98 sleeping, and it was, they were in the restart box. I wasn't incorrect about that, but of course, under the rules, that's irrelevant. You can't jump the start of the leader, and I wasn't clear on that. And so, yeah, obviously that, that wasn't correct. So I appreciate people pointing that out. As I always say, look, you hold me to the same standard as these broadcasters and stuff like that, no problems there. So it was definitely clarification. Obviously, that rule has changed so many times. I always think back to the one, or what was it, Montoya had at Dover, where the leader seemed to sandbag on the restart, and Montoya got the jump, and he got black flagged, and there was a lot of issues with that. It's been a situation where a lot of these drivers and teams have kind of had to do these Jeff Gordon jackrabbit starts, and it's unfortunate to see at a place like Indianapolis in particular, where this front straightaway is so narrow. And what are you going to do? Wait until the person gets all the way until they're on top of the yard of bricks to hit the gas? It's an unfortunate, situation there. But certainly the rule as it is what it is, and that was the right call under those circumstances. But it's unfortunate that it has to come down to things like that. But luckily, it was a restart that happened early enough in the race that Cindric was able to throw his hat back into the ring. And boy, did he ever, going toe-to-toe directly with A.J. Allmendinger, shoving him out of the groove in those S's, and I think put on a very good show to begin with. I'm still definitely in the camp that hopes that they go back to Indianapolis Raceway Park to join the ARCA Racing Series, bring the Truck Series back out there. That track puts on a great show, has a great Saturday night racing short track vibe that I think is really lacking perhaps in some of these tracks. And it would be great to see something like that back again. I don't know if we'll ever get back to that point. I know, there's a lot more, things that have to be worked out where these teams and these tracks have to figure out how much it's going to cost to, host these different races and everything. But it would be great to see the Xfinity Series be able to put on another great show at the short track there, and the Truck Series and everything and so forth. At least the Truck Series, I think that would be at least a fair compromise. That was one thing that made the Brickyard 400 week so great back in the day, is that you had that build up from Indianapolis Raceway Park and the other divisions leading up. And then the Indianapolis Motor Speedway was kind of more special that way, because this was the place that these guys were working their way up to. And it kind of captures that whole spirit in stock car racing, where you're trying to get yourself to be able to compete at the biggest speedways, the most glamorous venues. But in the meantime, you're paying your dues to these short tracks. And IRP is, or Lucas Oil Raceway, or whatever you want to call it. I still like calling it IRP. That's a place that really kind of captures that spirit. So it'd be nice if they still had those. I guess they still had ARCA this past week, but it'd be nice if it had more attention paid to it, getting more attention in these broadcasts there, and then have that be a nice appetizer to lead into the Brickyard 400. It would be good. It's good that they have the infield road course. I think they did put on a good show, and maybe that's something that they can explore for future venues and all that. But I think that, maybe have it on a different week, so it's not the same time as the Brickyard 400, or something else that would allow IRP to still be in that schedule there. And that would be there. Jack Garland, I see your comment there too. Mike Wallace coming back. Congratulations on that. Unfortunately, didn't have a great run there. End up getting in one of those incidents there in turn one. Tommy Joe Martins, your heart just breaks for all the things that he's dealt with. Just had a tweet that he posted earlier this week about all the issues they've had with DNQs and mechanical failures and fires in the car and crashes and crash damage, and then have this on top of where the axle flies out the left rear of the car and it just stops and he can't even get back to pit road. It's just another heartbreaker. Hopefully things turn around for him. Certainly. The shirts like I wore last week, Tommy Joe Martin shirt, is still available on his Etsy store. You can check his profile there if you're interested in supporting him that way. Of course, sponsorship is, of course, something that they're definitely looking for as well, although they have a number of major sponsors that have been very supportive of him at the 44 team, and hopefully will remain with him going forward as they work out the kinks to his owner-driver operation, the number 44. Let me pull up the results here for the Xfinity race and kind of look at some other stories, because there were certainly some other great runs through there. Brandon Brown had some serious damage in other incidents. Maybe not serious damage, but significant. I mean, compared to what we saw today, it seems trifling. But the right front damage that he had and the rear panel getting knocked off the number 68 car, still coming back to finish in the 11th spot, was a great run for him. Preston Pardis, have to congratulate him on his first top 10 finish in just his third series start. The son of Dan Pardis, the Floridian driver who ran in the ARCA series, then later brought us the Midwest Transit number 50 car before Ricky Craven took over driving that car. Pardis, his driver, doesn't get talked about that much, but his son has been working very hard to develop a career of his own, and certainly has to be lauded for a great run very early in his career. You remember back at the Roval last year, they had a wreck, and I believe it was in practice, had the entire front clip taken off the car, had to put another one on, didn't even have decals on it, and still had a solid, I think, like 25th place or 27th place finish in the Roval. Gets a 10th place finish this time around. Great job for him. Mario Gosselin team has been impressive on all fronts this year. Alex Labay with another top 10, finishing in the 8th spot, almost backing up his career best 6th place run at the Roval last year. You look at the rest of the top 15, Mike Harmon's team has really been impressive ever since Homestead in particular. Kyle Weatherman has really helped turn that organization around with a 15th place finish for a second straight race after the Pocono deal. And Bailey Curry, no slouch either. Had problems here in this race and a little bit at one of the Homestead races. But again, he was the one that had that top 20 stretch leading into Bristol. And so now both those drivers on that team are really making the most out of that team. And this is a team that has been derided as a start and park team, even though they haven't started and parked for a number of years, building up this organization, transitioning from Dodges to Chevrolets. Now it looks like they have more support. They even shared the repairables.com sponsorship that Jeremy Clements had, and a fantastic run for them. I think that was a great storyline to follow in the Saturday race. Jay Buford, the American Ninja Warrior competitor and sports car driver, his first ever start, finishes 14th on the infield road course, driving for SS Green Light Racing. Bobby Daughter's team has always been lying in the weeds, getting some good runs. We saw some great runs with Ray Galding last year in the 08 car. Now he has a 14th place finish with driver making his first ever NASCAR start across all divisions. We saw this with Lawson Aschenbach a few years ago with Johnny Davis's team, but Buford doing even better than Aschenbach did. So that was a good run. Looking at Brandon Godovic, started last in the field, ends up getting in the 12th spot there for the Sam Hunt team. Another team that's trying to get their feet under him. Had a bad wreck a couple weeks ago with Colin Garrett at Talladega. Bounce back and get a 12th place finish. Got to be happy for them, the Winstacks Energy Toyota. Timmy Hill had a great run. He was up there. Even Cody Vanderwall was a factor in the top 12 at the end when they were able to work some pit strategy out. Unfortunately, Vanderwall ended up spinning towards the end, getting in the 28th spot. But Timmy Hill in a Toyota Camry still got a 19th place finish, continuing to outperform with limited resources. And I didn't mention this in the article, but I got to give a shout out to Stephen Light as well. Driver who has had to be the back of the field here in these last couple of rounds, driving the start and park efforts there for the number 66. This time around, he gets in the 61, still with Janet King's sponsor that he had at Homestead, gets a 21st place run. Big congratulations to Stephen Light on a great run there as well. Ryan Sieg dropped back, unfortunately, to the 17th spot. Seems to just constantly just be missing the mark here, trying to get so close to his first Xfinity victory. Unfortunately, he still has to wait at least another week there, falling further back. But a lot of great runs out there. Josh Williams, Josh Balicki also kind of working their way up there. Joe Graff Jr. was a factor in that for a bit before he dropped back. And with a race with very little attrition, this is a race where you can't really say that a lot of wrecks help these guys get good finishes. You only had 3 drivers fall out between Tommy Joe Martins, Brandon Jones with a scary oil line fire, and the chassis issue for Jeffrey Earnhardt. Oh, by the way, only the second chassis issue to result in the last place finish, the other being Joey Gase in the Truck Series just last year. But Chase Briscoe with the victory, a well-deserved one, had a great battle there. Austin Cindric in the top 5. Haley going from 5th to 2nd at the end. Seemed like it was kind of ignored a little bit by the broadcast, but you couldn't ignore seeing it during that broadcast itself, watching the finish. Him very tactfully working his way into the 2nd spot there at the end. Justin Allgaier just on the outside of it. Alex Labay had right front damage, by the way, at the end in that final stretch. Still finished in the 8th spot there. It looked like they were just able to clear the fender without having to make a pit stop. So a lot of really exciting runs there. And Mike Wallace mentioned earlier in the 24th spot further back. Yeah, looking at the comments here again. Yeah, love to see the Brickyard 400 back to Saturday afternoon start time. That would be cool. Certainly there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to these start times, but and I think it was Tyler Head that tweeted the message where back in 2010 they were actually using these standardized start times where they're going to have 1 p.m. ones on the East Coast, 4 p.m. Eastern ones for the West Coast, and then 7:30 for night races, except the 600. and then Texas came in and messed everything up, and now everybody's back to 4 o'clock afternoon times, and it's all that. You know, it's an unfortunate deal, but hopefully things shake out like that. Certainly the daytime. Yeah, I remember. I think these races just look better during the day. Quite honestly, you know, it's unfortunate we've seen so much rain and lightning and all that on top of what's been going on with the pandemic and everything on top of it. But you know, it seems like if you're already going to start it that late in the day, and if you're going to get a rain delay on, you know, on top of it, or a lightning delay or anything, and you know, they got to, you know, safety is important, but you know, it is unfortunate that you have to race the sun in these. Because I think NASCAR, we certainly saw this at Pocono last week. Because I know this weekend it was different because the original planned schedule was going to have things set up with other events during Sunday and that things that got wiped out and all that. But last week at Pocono, having the triple header that day, and then having the lightning delay on top of it, now being pushed like right up against the very limit at a track that didn't have any lights, you may as well just have those dates be earlier. Or how about this? How about a rule where if you don't have lights, you have to have your date at 1 o'clock Eastern? You know, how about just start with that? I mean, a lot of these tracks are adding lights anyway. We already have that at Martinsville and so forth. But, you know, guaranteeing tracks like the Indianapolis or Talladega or something like that is going to be during the day. Maybe that would be a way to start it. And if they want to put the money forward to lights, then there's that. But, you know, I guess the only problem with that is inevitably they're probably all going to have lights at some point. But, you know, if it's being done on behalf of the West Coast, I'll tell you what, again, I mentioned this on Twitter, and I probably had too many other messages in the past here on this. Yeah, I remember growing up and watching, you know, ESPN's broadcast starting at 9:30 or NASCAR Today on ESPN 2. 9:30, and then the broadcast starts at 10. The race green flag's like at 10:05 because they're doing the commentary while the command to start engines is being given, and then you just jump right into the action. I don't know how realistic something like that is possible today with all the glitz and glamour that's to be expected with these pre-race ceremonies and other dignitaries that show up and other you know, sponsorship events that hopefully the drivers are going to be able to do again when we get past this pandemic again. You know, that would be something that they could work on again. But, you know, that's kind of a different deal. But Indianapolis is definitely one that, again, having it run earlier in the day, I think really plays into just, you know, how nice it looks. It really shows off how nice the track looks, much like the Indy 500 itself. And I'm not crazy about it being on Saturday. I think having it still be on Sunday would be great, but certainly earlier in the day. I think that, you know, that's going to be something that needs to be re-examined. You know, there's prime time, there's trying to get into that and all that. But I mean, it's, if you have tracks that don't have lights, you know, do you really want people to sit around and wait? You'll watch a race that's either cut short by darkness or delayed because they are postponed because the rain pushes the race later in the day. There's hazards on both sides that need to be worked out. Oh yes, Matthew Carpenter, I see your comment there. This is not a, oh yeah, this is an Earnhardt shirt. I was thinking like Dale Jr. No, this is, yeah, my Jeffrey Earnhardt shirt. I mentioned this last week on the show here, so I wanted to make sure I dug it out this time around. The number 96 shirt from 2018 obviously didn't count on Jeffrey Earnhardt finishing last in yesterday's Xfinity race, first time since 2014. But this is the shirt that I had difficulty getting a hold of in 2018 when XCI, Extreme Concepts Incorporated, was sponsoring the Gaunt brothers in the 96 team. You remember Jeffrey was running that car for a number of races, and then at Martinsville, the car showed up without the sponsorship. They put DJ Kennington in the car, and the deal fell through because apparently Jeffrey had moved on to Joe Gibbs Racing for the next year, and then all that fell through. So kind of an interesting time capsule. That whole deal fell through in like October. I didn't get this until I think like January of the next year. So I always think it's kind of an interesting one there. Again, mentioning XCI Racing, which ultimately became the branding of the Joe Gibbs affiliated team in 2019. In 2018, that was still the tagline that they were associating with the Gaunt brothers. So again, you see that with the 96 that's now driven by Daniel Suarez. An interesting deal with all that. I break that story down a bit more in the Jeffrey Earnhardt article. It's already on the website right now. You can check that out for the full story there. But yeah. Did he qualify the car? I thought he wasn't even in the car. I thought the car already had Kennington's name on the roof. Did that already change? I have to look that up. I may be wrong about that. If I'm wrong about that, I'm sorry about that. Let's get last car. That was the Jeffrey. It's a Kennington, Martinsville. It came in there somewhere. Yeah, it was the. let's see, this is October of 18. I have my entry list storylines one. I'm not sure if I covered that in there. Yeah, I have it in the entry list storylines. Kennington taking the place of Jeffrey Earnhardt after running the 28th place run at Martinsville. It's possible I updated that after the news came through. I don't have an indicator that it was an update situation, but I have that in there. So whatever happened in that sense, that would be something there. Big Mike, thank you for your comment on the J.D. McDuffie book. I'm glad you checked out the Audible broadcast. Waldorf found a great narrator, I believe, for that kind of captured the tone of the book quite well and did a good job. I believe it was Dwayne F. Chu, I believe is his name. Did a good job there. So if you ever want to be able to listen to the JD book in the car, that's available there on Amazon.com. If you forgive the plug on that for sure. Yeah. So again, thank you for the mention on that. I do still have another copy on the copy of the book still available. I need to order some more copies in my inventory, but I do still have one left. So if you're looking for a copy to be signed, offers limited, of course, but I'm going to order some more copies in the meantime. So if you guys are interested in that, of course, the full details are on the website as well. Yeah, no, the XCI deal is a fascinating one, but it's unfortunate how it's worked out with Jeffrey, where apparently he's piecing together sponsorship deals there to work with JD Motorsports. But since Jeffrey has that past history with JD Motorsports, it's really helped him out, and I think it's been a helpful reunion for both driver and team, at least hopefully. But him switching over to the 15 since Mike Wallace was in the 0 that he'd run pretty much up to this point this season. So we'll do that. Do I do books on tape of the JD book? I'd be open to that, but no. The publisher had their own narrator available, so they had their own publisher for it. I'm certainly open to doing some more voice work and stuff like that I've done, and we'll jump into. I guess we'll transition into this pretty soon. Actually, well, let's go ahead and mention that now on this subject. First of all, this Tuesday is going to be the premiere of the newest edition of 3 Before February, which is my longest video on the tragic events of the 2000 NASCAR season and the safety issues that resulted from it. I believe in Indianapolis here. It's a pretty good indication of why those safety issues were as important as they were, especially when it came to both the Hans device and the safer barrier. That video will be premiering at 4 o'clock Pacific time, 7 o'clock Eastern, this Tuesday, July 7th, which will mark 20 years since the tragic passing of Kenny Irwin Jr. in his accident at New Hampshire, the second of 3 fatal accidents that occurred during 2000. The others, of course, being Adam Petty, Kyle Petty's son, and Tony Roper, son of the great dirt tracker Dean Roper. The video is about 2 or 3 minutes longer than the original version. I've made a few adjustments in there to make it look a little bit more professional, kind of fix the opening a little bit, fixed a couple of audio issues that I wanted to kind of tweak in there, put in a couple of clips that I felt really needed to be in there, as well as some other material. So it's going to be a little bit more of a cohesive video. I'm still very happy with how it came out last year. I'm very thankful to all you guys for your positive responses to the video. I just want to make sure that the video is of the quality that, in the long term, is a good standalone, that's not just a long YouTube video, but more set up as kind of a movie. So I wanted to kind of do that. So that video is going to be posted this Tuesday. If you are in the Livestream, if you are in my Patreon, the video is available right now in the Patreon, so you can get advanced access to it between now and Tuesday afternoon when I set up the premiere. So if you want to see it, it's feel free to check it out. If you are in that level, at any level, if you are in there for as little as $1, you can have access to that video now, and you can watch it before the premiere this Tuesday. So you'll have that, and any other, and you'll also have access to all the other content in there, including the information about the next new video that's going to be on my channel, and other bonus content in there. The original JD McDuffie fan newsletters are in there. I have PDFs of those uploaded on there. I haven't done too many bonus videos yet that aren't publicly available, but there's a couple in there, I think. One that I talked about Dale Earnhardt is in there. I'm looking to do some more bonus content on there, especially once I get this next project moving. But we'll have some more news on that. So definitely check that out if you're interested in some last car swag. I have that for other levels there. If you want some bumper stickers, I even give out some die cast for other levels there for my own collection. I have newsletters. I want to do another newsletter hopefully pretty soon. I know I've only just done the one for those that are members on any level. I want to get another one of those together. I was hoping the pandemic thing would lighten up and then we'd be able to do some more trackside coverage. We'll try to find something interesting to put in there and maybe do something later on this year and have that for you guys out there and do something like that. So again, stay tuned this Tuesday at 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern, July 7th for the new edition, the 20th anniversary edition of Read Before February, which will be the full story of the 2000 season. I've gone through a few drafts of it in this last week and a half. I believe I just uploaded the latest version of it on Saturday. I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's going to be the version. So that'll be the version that's going to be available, that is available right now on the Patreon. I think that went live at 4 o'clock this afternoon when the Cup race was still running. But a project that I'm very passionate about, and I really want to make sure that it's done as right as possible. I'm very thankful for the corrections and critiques that I received there, and so I made some changes there, talking about when the Hans device was introduced for open wheel racing, IMCA modifieds, not calling them IMCA modifieds, some other quotes that needed to be in there that came up. Some other people shared some articles that really I could see where they fit in there. And I hope that you guys certainly like it there, because I think it's going to be better than the previous version on that. Matthew Carpenter, thank you for your comment about the lineup videos. Those are always fun to do. I'm always open to that. I still have a stretch goal in place at the Livestream where if we reach $100 a month, we'll do one for a race, and I'll also let the Patreon members vote as to which race I do. It could be a cup race, Xfinity race, truck race. I'm pretty much limited to just the top 3 series because that's what I have most knowledge about on that, but that's still a stretch goal in there. I've also made a subtle change to the Patreon. I got rid of the $100 level on there because I didn't. I had one in there where I would put like a person's Twitter handle or message on one of my hats for a broadcast. I'm not going to make that a mandatory thing where you have to do like each month. I think that's excessive. So I'm going to have that just there at $100 flat. If somebody just donates like that amount, even if it's just for 1 month, we'll do that. And I'm just going to kind of leave that out there. But it's much more smaller than that. I think every level is $20 and less on that. But I'm certainly open to whatever you're interested in donating on that. I know things are difficult here, so I'm not really concerned about that right now. But if you're interested in some bonus content, you can get that for as little as $1, and you have access to all the posts in there. So there's no tiers with that. It's more with what other content you want beyond that. But we do have that as a stretch goal on there. We also have a stretch goal on there to help out William Saki, who is our ARCA correspondent, who's doing a great job on that and promoting him to staff writer. That's also a further along the way, but we'll see where we get. We're still pretty new to the whole Patreon thing, so that's pretty new at the point here. Jack Garland, senior comment about Jerry Nadeau. Any other drivers are rooted for back in the day? Ricky Rudd would be the other one. Ricky Rudd was another driver that I definitely pulled for. I was a very big fan of the orange and white cars. I really liked the Tide Ride and everything. And I liked him a lot because Derek Cope used to run the orange and white cars, the Purelator cars before I had a firm understanding of what teams were. And clearly Bob Whitcomb Racing was very different from Rudd Performance Motorsports. I kind of liked the idea that both of them ran similar paint schemes because I was much more attracted to the paint schemes and the way they showed up on diecast back in the day. And then I kind of learned about the drivers from there, and then I learned from the teams from there, and I kind of learned the history of the sport from there, and that's what kind of built up my understanding of it. Ricky Rudd was, definitely a driver I pulled for. If I were to do another video on Rudd, I'd probably do one on about the wait between 1998 when he won that race at Martinsville with heat exhaustion until 2001 when he won at the June Pocono race. I remember following that very closely in that time and just being real excited, hoping that he would end that streak. First of all, in 99, hoping that he would continue his streak of consecutive win seasons to 17. And then he goes into 2000 to Robert Yates and winning the first race for Yates in the 28 car in years. And then in 2001, that continuing on, that he didn't win in the 2000 season, coming close. And then finally breaking through the June race at Pocono. That was a storyline that I was a big fan of from that serious time there too. So that was definitely another driver I pulled for. And then Derek Cope on top of that too. Him driving the orange and white cars at the same time too. Him pulling the upset at Daytona was just legendary. I think that same day was when I moved into my new house in Antioch with the family. I was just like 9 or 10 years old. It was the same day that he won the Daytona 500 in 1990. So that would be another one back then. But other competitors from there, that was always those were always drivers that I pulled for growing up, would be big ones. And then from there, just any of the underdogs. I mean, I could go on about Rich Bickle and guys like David Green, Greg Sachs, things like that. Drivers that maybe didn't get a whole lot of attention, but were just trying to make a name for themselves. I was always interested in the road course drivers in particular. People like Tommy Kendall or Boris Said or Ron Fellows, those guys trying to break through and taking a win. That was one thing that kind of drew my attention to Jerry Nadeau, as mentioned in the Jerry Nadeau video as well. That would be another thing. So that was another one. Jeff Green, certainly one to kind of talk about now, but things like that. Let's see. Yeah, Ted Musgrave never gets talked about. Yeah, that's true. That would be interesting, Andrew Hayes, seeing your comment on that. That was a guy that seemed to just be pounding on the door of his first victory. He had like I think didn't he have the last pole at Wilkesboro in '96, or he was at least on the front row. Great runs that he had, the number 16 car, even up to 1998 when he got replaced by Kevin LePage. He had like a second place run in Martinsville to Bobby Hamilton. It seemed like that team was really on the verge, and Musgrave was one of the best drivers they had in that car. LePage had some decent runs in 2000. Unfortunately, things didn't get going from there, and he ultimately was replaced by Biffle. But Musgrave was, he was a very good driver in the Cup Series there. I love the Family Channel car. I thought the version that he had between about 94 and 96 was the best version, where it had like the patriotic version. And they added the Prime Star colors on there. It kind of got a little muddled. Didn't look quite as good, but certainly the ones that he had second to Kyle Petty in 95, or second or third. He was one of the guys up there in 95 to Petty. But yeah, that was too bad that he never won a race. He was a good competitor out there. CJ McLaughlin, I saw a comment in there about that. I don't know what's going on with him. I think he came up in one of these entry list stories earlier about running for RSS Racing, but maybe that's changed now that Myatt Snyder has picked up a part of that schedule to fill out what he's not running in the 21 car. That's probably the reason we're not hearing as much from him. I don't know if he's going to be picking up anything like McLeod's team or anything. Didn't he make an attempt in the 99 car earlier this year? Because I know Balicki has picked up a lot of that part. The 99 has been kind of their rotating series of drivers car. Mason Massey is a driver that I'm really enjoying watching his runs in that car, especially after that team was determined to get him back out there at Bristol after missing basically half the race, and still finished out of last place because he clawed his way past Michael Annett and these other guys. I thought that was a fantastic story, and I really enjoyed writing about that. Yaley in the 99, okay. Yeah, so they've had other competitors run that car instead, but that's been a different deal. Why they replaced Musgrave, I don't know. I think it had something to do with Joe Falk was who LePage drove for in the 98 season, because he was going for Rookie of the Year. And then the team didn't have sponsorship, and I think the team either shut down or suspended operations, and he was just a free agent. And for some reason, I guess Roush wasn't happy with Musgrave and picked him up partway through the year, and LePage finished off the year. So that was another different deal there. So that was interesting. Yeah, LePage had some great paint schemes. Yeah, the TV guide cars were good in 99. I think they made die casts of that. I remember they ran the Taco Bell Chihuahua when they ran that car at Sears Point, and that was really cool. It looked great. I remember standing in the infield, or the old part of the infield where the main grandstands were, looking at the exit of turn 10 and seeing that car come out of the corner. I thought that was it looked really cool in person. Yeah, Joe Falk stayed back in the sport. I mean, technically they went back, a number of times, because they're still, I guess, part owners of the 95, because the Circle Sport thing got merged into the 30, which got us the 33 that had Jeffrey Earnhardt run it. And then before that, TJ Bell had a one-off at Darlington. The Bandit Chopper's car, the 50 car for a while there. TJ Bell was at that. So, yeah, Joe Falk's team's had a weird history itself of just going in and out of the sport kind of that way. But that's been that. Yeah, in 2000, it was the Family Click car. Yeah, in 99, he had when I was thinking of the TV Guide car, that was 99. With LePage had that. But the Family Click one, Yeah, he had that in 2000, and then he stalled the car in turn 11. I think the either tore the transmission out of it or the rear gear failed. But in the early 2000 race, I don't think I have any pictures of that, but yeah, I do have the diecast of the Family Click car. That was a good one. That would make a great throwback. You know, a lot of the, much like the Johnny Benson Lycos car that we talked about in the Benson video, a lot of great paint schemes that year were brought about by these teams that actually ran these .com sponsors. And so they had some good ones. I would even lump in the AOL cars that came in afterwards, like 2002 to 2004, thereabouts with Childress. They had some really nice paint schemes there. Jeff Green running those for a number of years. Yeah, the 16 and 98 was the blue and yellow one. And then they had the orange and yellow one to start 99. And then it was orange and white by the end when TV Guide kind of took hold of kind of the Prime Star sponsorship from there. So that was kind of the transition. It was kind of that Family Channel to Prime Star to TV Guide, and then ultimately cut off there and went to the Family Click one. So you had that whole different deal. That was a good one. Yeah. By the way, I'm really pleased with all the different cars that are getting made by the Lionel company or showing up on Plan B sales. I admit I pulled the trigger on the version of Corey LaJoie's car with a face mask on it. I thought that looked really cool in person. We're talking about number placement, because I know we're coming up on that All-Star race where they're going to have that horrible number placement next to the rear tires. I really liked how LaJoie's car looked at Martinsville, where the numbers were a bit higher up on the door. Mike Harmon's cars were like this at the Xfinity race this weekend, where the numbers were higher up on the door. I thought that looked kind of cool. Instead of having them too low or too far forward or something, I kind of liked how that looked. Especially with the 32, where the number is so huge. The font they picked is this big rectangle, basically, or rhombus or whatever. Just big shape, big parallelogram on the door of the car. It takes up so much space. I think that was something that looked pretty good. So, yeah, I had to get the diecast of that. That one looked pretty cool. I don't buy nearly as much diecast as I used to. It's just no point, really. I remember as a kid, I used to have, like, print out, like, an entry list sheet and look for all these ones and find out who was made on which one. And that was always fun. You know, at the beginning of each year, it's like, ooh, we got to find the new Bell South car. We got to find the new Kodak car or something like that. That was cool. Did they already call? We have a call on the thing. We're not really doing the tech inspection thing, but do we have a call on that already for the inspection? If we do, that would be something there. We'll look at Pockrace's page. Let me spell that correctly. Owner points. Okay, yeah, 4 minutes ago. Cup Tech is complete. No issues. Harvick is the winner. Okay, so it is going to be a Ryan Preece article tonight. Preece's second last place finish of the year. The first for the number 37 at Indianapolis after that early pit road incident. So we do have that official here. Keeping this pretty loose on that, but that'll be interesting. Yeah. No, the 77, the Mellow brand car, that'd be cool. If they made it in 64th, I'd be open to it. I don't like buying a lot of 24ths or something. I think that just takes up too much space, and that's not really been my thing. But if they had 64th, I'd be open to do it just to support the team. But that would be something from there. Zach Price was released from the hospital. Fantastic news. Okay, great news. That's good to hear. So good deal for him. So I'm sure just checking everything out, make sure he is how he is. I was glad he was in good spirits. I mean, definitely, we talk a lot about safety issues in the 2000 season. Certainly seeing issues on pit road, you think about safety issues in the 1990 season when they ultimately had to install the current pit road speeding limits. It's easy to forget. It looks like they're going so slow on TV, especially from a distance. But you figure you're working on pit road when they're going by you at freeway speed. If we're talking 55, 65 miles an hour, even if it's just 45 miles an hour, that's like on a public road. Imagine kneeling next to your car trying to change a tire, and there's somebody whistling right behind you, even at that speed. I mean, that's going to startle you. That's why they always talk about, trying to make sure you pull off to the shoulder and give yourself as much room as possible in situations like that. Just imagine a situation where you had in 1990 where the cars really wouldn't slow down coming down to pit road. They'd slow down a little bit just so they don't overshoot their stall. But then you have awful situations like what happened to Mike Rich in Atlanta in 1990, or a less serious situation, thankfully, of Dale Jarrett's incident at Indianapolis. I believe it was 2003. He locked the brakes up and ran into his pit stall and hit a couple of his crew members there. You had a situation from there. But, yeah, the pit road speeding limit didn't come in until 91, and not at the beginning of 91. In 91, they had the red stickers and the blue stickers. If you were 1 or a 2, they tried to split up who was coming down pit road. They kept changing it, and then partway through 91, they finally settled on the pit road speeding thing. So that wasn't until later. I actually talked about that in the JD book a little bit. But 1990, the Michael Rich thing certainly laid the groundwork for the pit road changes on pit road and forcing people to stay out on old tires, which was a problem itself. 91 Daytona 500 is a big issue. And certainly if you watch the spring Bristol race that year when the rules were changed again and again, but still not having speeding on pit road, it was just a nightmare trying to keep track of who was running where. And ultimately, I think it was at Wilkesboro, they finally put in the speeding limit, and then that's what they've had since then. So that was a different deal. Yeah, Ricky Rudd's crash at Homestead was another one. That was bad. I think, what was it? Ward Burton went into the pit stall or something like that. It was somebody else. And that was the reason that the crew members had the helmets. See, of that issue. I mean, that's the unfortunate thing with I guess with progress of any kind, but especially in sports. Every decision that is made, everything that exists the way that it does, is because of a tragedy or an accident or something awful that's happened in the past. But that was certainly another one there from that. But the red stickers, the blue stickers, were other situations from that. Chad Little spinning on pit road in Pocono 2000. I've forgotten about that. I'm sure it wouldn't surprise me given all the craziness that happened that year. Another incident's way. Yeah, Casey Edward got Ward Burton's way. I mean, if somebody got hooked like into the pit stall, I mean, it's an awful situation. I mean, those guys, they really put their lives on the line to service those cars and everything. And it may seem so commonplace and calm on pit road, and then you expect, like, oh man, was it a fast enough stop, or did somebody drop a lug nut? But then you forget that, yeah, these guys are doing it under immense pressure, not just the time pressure, but the proximity of that. And I got to give a call to both those crew members, both Zach there for crab walking out of the way, literally between those cars. I mean, and he did that like right away. I mean, his fantastic instincts and reflexes there under the circumstances with that injury. And then the other crew member that jumped onto the roof of the car. I mean, just astounding athleticism. This is why you get guys from collegiate sports and stuff. I mean, these guys are no schmucks. They are ones that are absolutely working their tails off and staying fit and training everything in those situations there. But yeah, it was an interesting scenario. But yeah, glad everybody's okay. Glad the drivers that hit the wall were okay. And, certainly I invite you guys to check out re-release of 3 Before February this Tuesday to help shed light on why a lot of these things are the way they are and how frightening it really was before we got to that point. The safety controversies certainly were given more attention after Dale Earnhardt's passing, but that was just the latest in a series of steps through the 90s and particularly in the 2000 season. We'll just kind of tie all that together at the same time. Going to be very interested to see what safety changes, if any, are made at Indianapolis, especially after Roger Penske acquired the track there from the Holman family. What decisions are going to be made? It did look like the track looked a lot cleaner and nicer and stuff, and everything in that sense. But there's going to be other things for them to look at the same time. So we'll see from there. But yeah, so we're gonna have the preview on Tuesday. We cover the races there from today. If you guys have any other questions about the racing, we'll definitely cover that. Anything else that I've missed from the action, we'll have the article ready for you later tonight on Ryan Preece. Have the article pretty much outlined, but we'll get that set up. We'll do a few trivia questions here. If I remember to bring this down, let's make sure it's in my bag of tricks here. It should be. Up, I think I feel it. There you go. All right. Okay. So we'll do a few trivia questions here. It's already run kind of long here. I won't keep you guys too long. Remember last time? That's right. Last time we brought this out, we had the JD McDuffie question on here, so that was pretty cool. So we'll do a little bit of this here in the meantime. They're making diecast in 77. Okay, that's cool. That would be. I mean, we'll see what happens on the with everything shaking out the way it is. Alrighty. Okay. So we'll go ahead and go into the categories for the trivia here today, and we'll keep this the background. I'll go ahead and keep answering your guys' questions here for a bit. We'll do this for a few minutes and cover that. Which category would you like us to do? The categories are, once again, NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Whichever category you guys want, go ahead and mention in the comments. We'll do some more questions here. All right, the correct answer is Dan Pardis. That'd be fantastic. Yeah, I mean, they're probably going to keep the Xfinity. I imagine that, I mean, certainly with a finish like that, they're not going to ignore that next season for setting the schedule. And I'm sure Tony Stewart still wants to run it, even though that deal ended up falling through with everything that's happened this year. So if we, it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. But certainly a positive endorsement from what was going on there. Hello again. Welcome again, Ultimate 23 Dragon, and everybody on board. 24 people here. My goodness. Thank you, everyone, that's joined up here. I know it's been a long day there with all the lightning delays and everything, but we are in the home stretch. We'll have the article ready for you later tonight, and we'll do some trivia here to start off. I see 2 votes for wildcard, 3 for teams, 1 for drivers. We'll start with teams here and jump into that. So first question for teams. What owner swept the top 3 positions in the 1997 Daytona 500? What owner swept the top 3 positions in the 1997 Daytona 500? Yeah, I know. We're not starting off with a particularly hard question, but maybe we'll get some harder ones along the way. All right. Checking anything on the phone. Okay. All right, Hendrick, 24-5-25. Yes, indeed. The answer is, of course, Rick Hendrick. That is correct. All righty. What team won the Daytona 500 back-to-back in 1994 and 1995? What team won the Daytona 500 back-to-back in 1994 and 1995? What team won it back-to-back? This was the last time that it happened before Denny Hamlin won his back-to-back this year. And the guesses are Morgan McClure, Robert Yates Racing, Morgan McClure. And the answer is indeed Morgan McClure. You guys got it. Indeed, Morgan McClure is the correct answer. Sterling Marlin, the driver of the number 4 car, his first 2 Cup Series victories in 1994 and 1995, both in the Daytona 500. Alrighty. What former driver won exactly 140 NASCAR Winston Cup races as an owner? What former driver won exactly 140 NASCAR Winston Cup races as an owner? What former driver won exactly 140 NASCAR Winston Cup races as an owner? Okay, we got guesses for Junior Johnson. Any other guesses? Yeah, running. I mean, I'm not really on board for running the Brickyard 400 on the Roval part. I mean, maybe. I mean, we'll see. I mean, I don't know how well these Cup guys are going to manage that. I mean, the Roval is already pretty crazy. And much like we saw in the Xfinity race today, like the Roval last year, there was really low attrition, but there were a lot of cars that were just falling apart. And it's being run much like road courses like Watkins Glen and Sears Point were about 20 years ago, where it used to be they would have mechanical failures a lot more common. And nowadays, there's so little attrition at Sears Point and Watkins Glen that if you have any kind of problem at all, you're going to be very far back in the pack. Well, thanks again, Beast of Metal, for the super chat. The last team to win back-to-back 500s before Hamlin did with Gibbs was actually Hendrick with Johnson in 13 and 14. That is correct. You are very correct. Yep, that is right. The last driver to win back-to-back, Marlin was last driver to win back-to-back, and then Hamlin won back-to-back. You're right. You're right. Rick Hendrick. I stand corrected. Thank you for being on the ball there. Correct. Last team to do it in 2013 and 2014. 14 with those two different drivers. I got to say again, you are a king among men. I really appreciate all the super chats on there. I know you're a supporter there in the last round as well, so I thank you for your support here of the website. That has not gone unnoticed. So we have that. And of course, the answer is Junior Johnson. Junior Johnson is the correct answer. The majority is correct on that for sure. Junior Johnson is correct. Okay. Okay. So, okay. All right. I mean, this might be a little too easy, but we'll see. Who never took STP up on their $50,000 offer to paint his car all red? Who never took STP up on their $50,000 offer to paint his car all red? Bring Cup Series to Montreal, and I second that. I would love to cover that. I'd love to dust off my French skills and French language skills and go up there into Montreal and cover a race up there. That would be fantastic. We'll see what happens there. And we got guesses for Richard Petty, Richard Brickhouse, and the answer is indeed Richard Petty. I think it's an interesting stat that that STP and Andy Granatelli wanted to pay $50,000 to have Petty's car changed from all blue to all red. Ultimately, they did run an all red car that Buddy Baker drove, number 11 car. But then, of course, that iconic paint scheme, that blue and red, is just gorgeous and came together perfectly to the point where you can't really identify the paint scheme with one without the other. Even Worldwide Technologies, sponsoring the number 43 now, seems to be continuing that tradition, bringing that nice light blue, that pleasing neon red, and then the other shades of blues and reds mixed in there. They didn't run that scheme today. They had an anniversary scheme or something running today, but that other version that he ran in the Bubba Wallace ran in the Winston last year, I'm definitely a huge fan of that. I think that's a gorgeous paint job. Alrighty. Yeah, inspection is over. Harvick is indeed the winner. Yeah, thank you, Matthew Carpenter. Yes, indeed, Harvick is the official winner, and Ryan Preece, the official last place finisher. We did see comments on that earlier. And the answer is indeed, of course, Richard Petty, we said with the team's question. Okay, now this one here. Let's see what we got here. Okay, now come on. We got some easy ones here. Who is a crew chief for the 97 champions, Ray Evernham? Okay, that's easy. Here we go. Here we go. Here's a good one. Here's a good one. Strap in, folks. What owner built cars that won 262 of 362 races from 1974 through 1985? What owner built cars? What owner built cars that won 262 of 362 races from 1974 through 1985? Bubba did have a good finish today. Yes, another great run. And again, backing up that third place run last year. What owner built cars that won 262 of 362 races from 1974 through 1985? We have guesses for Junior Johnson, the Wood Brothers. Do we have any other guesses here? What owner built cars that won 262 of 362 races from 1974 through 1985? Yeah, that's right. The donations to Victory Junction. I mean, of course, they've been running the Victory Junction schemes too, so they've done that interchangeably between the two, which is great also. Victory Junction Gang Camp car is certainly a good one, and obviously I'm a fan of the one that the Adam Petty car that he ran last year. That was cool. What owner built cars that won 262 of 362 races from 1974 through 1985? The answer is Banjo Matthews. Banjo Matthews. We're going further back. Banjo Matthews in his chassis shop built cars that won 270. What was the number again? Let me get the answers again. One owner built 262 of 362 races from 1974 through 1985. Now, there's a fact to take home with you. How about that? The Air Force car is okay. That's all right. I'm middle of the road on that. It's like the click and close car he got second at Daytona with, or third, or yeah, second or third with it. Alrighty. We'll do a couple more here, and we'll probably wrap up here. How many of Larry McClure's first 13 wins as an owner did Ernie Irvan drive? Here we go. Morgan McClure follow up. Banjo Matthews. Yeah, it said owner. Yeah, it said it didn't say chassis builder. It was worded a little badly. If it said chassis builder, that would have probably been more clear there. But the answer was Banjo Matthews. The question here: how many of Larry McClure's first 13 wins as an owner did Ernie Irvan drive? Don't look it up on Racing Reference. We have guesses: 8 and 6 and 5 and 7 and 12. Okay, any other guesses here? How many of Larry McClure's first 13 wins as an owner did Ernie Irvan drive? That is the question. How many of Larry McClure's first 13 wins as an owner did Ernie Irvan drive? Alrighty. Any other guesses here? Alrighty, we got guesses for 5 and 6 and 12 and 8 and 13. Or do we have 13? Now, nobody guessed all 13, but let's see. The answer is 7. 7 wins. There we go. 7 wins for Ernie Irvan. Did everybody guess it? Oh, Bean Boy, you got it. Confirmation 07, you got 7 as well. And you guys got that too. Bean Boy, and you guys all there at that too. So good runs on that. We'll just get a couple more on here. Yeah, it seemed like somehow 5 or 6 sounded right, but that'd be different. Alrighty. We'll do let's see. Let's get one more good one here. Alright, here we go. What car owner had a record high 1,635 starts by the end of the 1997 season? What car owner had a record high 1,635 starts by the end of the 1997 season? What car owner had a record high 1,635 starts by the end of the 1997 season? What are the guesses here? You got ones for Richard Petty. Any other guesses on that? Petty, Junior Johnson, Yarborough. What car owner had a record high 1,635 starts by the end of the 1997 season? All righty. And you guys guessing Petty? And the answer is indeed Petty Enterprises is the correct answer. All righty. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to do one more question here. It's the last question of the night. So get your fingers on your buzzers here, and we'll get the last question of the night. We'll do another live stream after 3 before February this Tuesday, July 7th, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll do the video. Video will be about 90 minutes. We'll do a live stream after that. We'll open it mostly for discussion there, but we can do trivia on that too if it comes about that way. We'll just kind of play it by ear from there. But we'll see how it goes. So here's the last question of the night. Who drove 42 wins for himself and 6 wins for other owners in the 50s? Who drove 42 wins for himself and 6 wins for other owners in the 50s? So that's the last question of the night. Who drove 42 wins? Which driver drove 42 wins for himself and 6 wins for other owners in the 50s? Herb Thomas, Buck Baker, Lee Petty, Freddie Lorenzen, Herb Thomas. Any other guesses here? He drove 42 wins for himself and 6 wins for other owners in the 50s. Any other guesses here? Tim Flock. These are all good guesses. Lee Petty, Herb Thomas, Lee Petty. Any other guesses here? 42 wins for himself and 6 wins for other owners in the 50s. Any other guesses here? We're going to hit the button very soon. Get your votes in. Last question of the evening. 42 wins for himself and 6 wins for other owners in the 50s. Ned Jarrett, Herman Beam. The answer is Herb Thomas is the correct answer. Ultimate 23 Dragon, I think you were the first one. Congratulations, you got it. Cody Church, you got it as well. Beast of Metal, you got it. Said Head 2, you got it. Herb Thomas, indeed the correct answer. So we're going to leave it off there for now. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know you have many choices when it comes to your post-race and otherwise live streams. I thank you so much for spending a little time with myself here tonight. Stay tuned next week where we're going to go through a stacked weekend in Kentucky, and I will probably be half awake again like our Pocono show, but we will try to do our very best to cover that. Again, 3 before February. The 20th anniversary edition coming up this Tuesday, July 7th, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. A live stream will be following that show as well. At Last Car on Brock is the Twitter. Patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock is the Patreon. Those of you in the Patreon, again, will right now have access to the new version of 3 before February as part of your access for as little as $1. And the website, of course, lastcar.info. Before I forget, the article on Ryan Priest coming up later tonight. Have a very happy rest of your 4th of July weekend. And stay tuned, as always. Last happens. Have a good night, everyone.